We'll get started. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar on how to use dots specifically for research teams and insights teams. We've put together some of the use cases and some of the use cases that we've been working with organizations with. There's a lot more that might come up in the webinar, so please actively use chat to share what all are your use cases. And we'd love to open and expand the kind of work we're doing. And today I am joined by Akshay, who is a co-founder at Dots. I'm Yashna, I'm also the co-founder. And there are a few more team members who will support us through the webinar questions and such. So make sure you write that, and those questions will come to us at the end. And we can always use chat to respond to a few of those during the webinar as well. There's Pratiksha, Roop, and Dhwani from Dot, so we're who could assist you in responses as well. All right. I hope my screen is visible. I can see it being shared.
Yeah, we can
So
see it.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get started with some of the research flows. We're directly jumping into this because there's a lot to cover today, especially the entire demo and the different use cases that have come up for using dots. So we've put in some of the use cases which are applicable, but I think if you can share in chat if you think there are some workflows which you do, which are not mentioned here. So today what we're covering are also a few, like what we see research teams doing, which is longitudinal studies, mixed method research, recurring voice of customer studies, UX discovery research, stakeholder studies, large scale field studies, field research, ongoing insight reports. And what we're also seeing that a lot of data explosion is happening, qualitative data is expanding, research is becoming collaborative. Clients and funders want to see research. And there is essentially synthesis timelines are shrinking and insights need to persist across segments. These are some of the reasons why DOTS has also been found. And DOTS is essentially a qualitative data analysis platform with an ability to bridge some gap between the quantitative and qualitative data as well. And it has a few use cases. We're covering primarily what is on the screen today. And essentially what we see happening in research use cases is that most of the research workflows are broken after collection. There is a lot of challenges that we face in collection as well, and we'll cover some of those. But a lot of our focus today is going to be, once you have the data in different sources, how do you make sure there are scattered transcripts that come together? And the problems that we see essentially are those disconnected notes, inconsistent tagging, siloed analysis, static reports, weak evidence traceability, one of the major ones these days with all the AI stuff that's available. And it's often that the research is hard to revisit after a project or a program is run. So our target is to focus on these points while building dots. How do we bridge this gap and make it bridge that challenge in collecting in a structured way, connecting research across stages, synthesizing collaboratively, preserving evidence traceability throughout. And it's not a one-time thing that you can get to, and comparing insights across segments and studies. So research doesn't need to sit individually in a particular segment, or like for a segment, different insights come together. How does comparison happen and make research reusable over time? So we'll cover today some research workflows and their operational challenges. How does DOTS address by doing a walkthrough of the platform, and how are teams essentially using DOTS? So that's the agenda of the session. Let me get started with the different workflows, but as I am going forward, please share if you think these are the use cases that have shown up for you. If you think something else is showing up for you as a research team, as a product team, as a impact study specialist, whoever you are representing, would love to hear from you in terms of what are the different workflows that you have. So the landscape is basically qualitative plus quantitative data. exploratory evaluative, longitudinal cross-section, primary and secondary research, and interviews, self-reported input, field observation. So we've essentially tried to bring in different aspects of the research, and dots exist to support these workflows and connect it into one place. And the first one of these examples of exploratory research and generative research are examples like diary studies, exploratory interviews, behavioral research, ethnographic studies, jobs to be done, research, needs finding. And usually a workflow looks like participant recruitment, demographic or context collection. And there's longitudinalness of recurring input from these same participants. Then you end up doing interviews and then the thematic synthesis of that data. But the challenge remains that how do you connect that participant context with those inputs and then synthesize together? So this is one workflow that we see in a lot of organizations. The other is a similar one, but often positioned differently, which is longitudinal and panel research. So repeated participant engagement. It may not be through diary studies or exploratory. It could be with a specific agenda. Then there could be intervention studies, there could be panel research, there could be, I want to monitor behavior over time. I want to see how my product lands. So there could be a pre-study and a post-study. It could be a cohort and segment tracking study. So different kinds of longitudinal research and panel research can happen. And usually, again, same participants over time, multiple stages of research, evolving research studies, and seeing what's happening and then doing a comparative analysis over time. So before, after, what's happening, through segments of what's happening. So this is again another workflow that we're seeing organizations do. And again, the idea is how do you connect all these and not keep these in silos, right? The idea is to say that you can see all of this in one place and not keep them independently um, in a folder trying to make sense of it in the second round of research. The third workflow is the voice of customer research, which is it could be a mix of input coming from specific dedicated churn studies that you would do for isolated segments of customers. It could be customer pain points, and you're trying to find that from multiple sources of whatever you're getting. So service calls, feedback calls, recurring insights coming from multiple sources again, competitive switching studies that you might do, then reviews and socials mentions and scraping from the media that you might do. So it could be a mix of all these various data sets coming together. And especially when it comes to voice of customer with fast moving organizations, there's rapid turnaround, there are recurring studies happening, multiple stakeholders. There needs to be also traceability, because a lot of these times it's becoming like, oh, AI will come and give me some solutions, but there isn't enough traceability. And then multiple teams need to see the different sources, right? So it's not just a study for a research team, it could be for a product and program team also. How does that research be available for different stakeholders? And the idea, the challenge, and something that we are solving for is maintaining that synthesis quality and traceability across those data points and bringing all of them in one place. The other is something we've been doing a lot of these webinars specifically on, so we won't go in the depth of it, but essentially a workflow is MEL and long-term mixed method studies. So program evaluation, ongoing monitoring data, stakeholder ecosystem studies, all essentially data coming from multiple sources, mixed method data, qualitative, quantitative, geographical segmentation, and large-scale synthesis. So how do you preserve that nuance and detail while operating at scale is something that we have been catering as a challenge to solve through dots. This is also a very often data set or like kind of workflow for research organizations, so secondary research and literature review that can be combined with a lot of these other workflows that we've spoken about. But how do you really analyze policy reports, reviews, annual reports, previous studies, all of them ingest into one system, coded across these different systems, cross-referenced, etc. So there's a lot on this that can happen by bringing the primary data also with the secondary data. Um, and the last one is the UX teams. This is something because a lot of these tools are solving for in a very specific way. There are many ways of looking at data, with being concept testing, feature feedback, prototype reactions, product discovery. And DOTS essentially supports in the collecting and organizing of research, synthesizing, making sure it's all multiple sources come together, thematic analysis, cross study insight management, reusable research knowledge, reusing that knowledge, but does not support session replay, behavioral analytics platforms. So it's not replacing those. Those are also go together because those give you the what, and DOTS essentially gives you the why behind it. So you're listening to a lot of these voices from different sources and bringing it all together. That's essentially where DOTS fits in. It basically, what we'll walk you through is how do you structure research intake? How do you organize this? How do you thematically analyze, synthesize, and with our systems of structuring and analysis and AI, how does that all come together? How do you go deeper into your insights, cross-reference it with multiple data sources and segments? And how does that whole engine of insights gets operationalized? So that's what we're going to cover. I'll hand it off to Akshay on the demo for dots, and we'll look at the other part of sorry the other part of the webinar after the demo.
Super. Thank you. So, this is the first glimpse you have of the product. So this is the Dots platform. Just to set up the context, in this particular case, what we've done is we're using a synthetic data set that we've created specifically for a research project. So we imagined that a team has been commissioned to do research around what influences people's decisions around water sanitation and hygiene. The specific focus on sanitation and hygiene, and their choices around what kind of facilities they use, and really kind of looking at what influences them. And the idea of the structure of this study, if you can look at the data sets, are that a demographic questionnaire is done to be able, while bringing participants into the platform, into the study. And the idea is that we have 100 participants, 50 in India, 50 in Kenya, spread across 2 districts in each country. And the idea is that then a baseline survey is also administered to these participants, which is a mixed method survey. So some quant questions, some qualitative questions, and then 3 rounds of qualitative studies that focus on very different hypotheses that are part of this study. The idea being that every couple of months, the researchers go back into the field and have this conversation. And in the meantime, in those 6 months, a few of the participants are also given a format. In this case, we're showing how dots could be used through a self-serve survey link for a diary study, right? And so that's the broader context of this synthetic data set we're showing you. Now, how do you bring data into the platform, right? One is that one of the easy ways to do that is to bring it in using a CSV. So I have a cleaned up Excel sheet over here where every column essentially is one field, and you can have a combination of quant fields and qualitative fields as well. So these 3 questions are short form qualitative responses, and this last field can be is an interview transcript. Uh, you can have very long interview transcripts if you'd like. We've had cases where partners have interview transcripts that bleed out of a single cell in an Excel sheet, in which case, it's easy to just add multiple columns to say transcript continued again, etc. So in case you pass, the several tens of thousands of characters that do fit into a single cell in an Excel sheet. The idea is that, like I said, every column is a component or a field, and every row is one survey, right? And so that way you can have a fairly large number of surveys that you can add at one go. We've added a few thousand at a time as well. The idea is that I import a data set, I select CSV, and I find the Excel sheet that I want to upload. And essentially, what it does is it pulls that data set into the platform. And what the system does is it analyzes the data, or it looks at the data in every column and takes a first pass at what this type of component is, right? So in this case, it is text. In this case, it is a single select field. So if you had a form through which you were collecting this, this would be a radio button field, right? In some cases, it might get it wrong. It's interpreted this as a rich text field. It's actually a single select. So I can go and change that. And you can also see that we have different types of fields that you can have. Rich text fields, URLs, numbers, date. In this format, if you have a timestamp, as you might, if you're collecting data in a Google form, simple tables, multi-select, JSON inputs, tags, etc. Right? And if you have multi-select type of questions, a checkbox question, you just need to use a comma separator, and so on. So this is one way to bring data into the platform. And this is the same way that in an existing data set, you can add more data, right? And this is the one of the key ways in which people are bringing data into the platform. Another way, of course, is that we have our own forms. And in this case, let's say that we wanted to do the participant diary entry. You can have a set of fields that you might want to collect data in. So in this case, we're asking participants of the research study every month, to report things that might have happened in the past month relating to sanitation in their home or their community, any things that have made it easier or harder to maintain their sanitation practices, any shifts that they've had in thinking. Now, the interesting thing here, which is different from some other form builders you might use, is that we also have a hints feature. The idea is that for any text field, when you're asking a participant or somebody to add data, we can add a few hints to give them a few triggers so that you get more nuanced and more high quality qualitative data answers. Partners in the non-profit space, especially in MEL, use this a lot for storytelling and using stories as a form of data collection. You can also add images and caption those images. So we have a variety of forms that you can add. Um, you can use to add data. The a third way to bring data into the platform are integrations. At the moment, we have integrations with Slack, Fathom, and we do custom integrations with WhatsApp chatbots. So if you already have a system for collecting data around WhatsApp chatbots, we can integrate with that and use that as a source of data to bring data into the platform. Other than these commonly available tools, we also build custom integrations in case teams have custom apps that they've built or things that don't necessarily exist with open APIs. So these are some ways in which data comes into the platform. An important point to note around how data is organized is that the quality of what you can do in analysis, especially when it comes to disaggregation, depends on how the data is linked to each other or data is connected in many ways. So the way that we often advise teams to deal with this is to have a participant registry. In our case, we're using the demographic questionnaire to register participants on the platform with their name, the country, the state. So a lot of the demographic details, right? So are they urban or rural? What is their religion, their age, income, etc. Right? The idea then is that each participant has a participant ID, and that participant ID is linked with every other data set that we have, so that when I'm looking at data in my baseline survey or my hypothesis one, I can use all those fields from the demographic questionnaire to be able to filter data here as well. So this is how data comes into the platform. This is that first level of organization of the data as well. The other thing that we do, so the other thing that we do when we're organizing or we're setting up a platform is that we work with partners to set up a platform context where we put in information about the particular project or the organization that is getting that is using dots, what their research goals and outcomes are, and around each and every data source that they have, because this becomes essential context for the various LLM tools we've integrated to be able to do annotation, answer questions well, summarize, build reports, and so on. Lastly, what we do is that we set up something called a themes manager. Now, if you're familiar with qualitative data coding, then this could be called a code book. We call it a themes manager. And the idea is that you can have three levels in dot. So you can have three nested levels, themes, within that sub themes and within that tags. And this allows for both deductive and inductive analysis. So the theme, sub themes here are things that we had set and locked because this is what the study was focused on. And those that you see with this starburst icon are the ones that were generated as we were doing running AI annotation. So this is just to kind of give you an overview of how each platform is set up for a particular research project and configured for that research project. As soon as your data comes into the platform and is set up, you can immediately start asking it questions. This has become somewhat commonplace where you're able to ask questions of your data. But there are a couple of key differences in how we do this at Dots. One is that when you ask a question, you get an answer, but very importantly, we also show you the specific references that the AI system has used to actually create that answer. Because traceability is a very important principle that we've built in across the design of the platform. What this means is that you not only see the references that have been used to come up with the answer, but you can also click on one of those references, which is a card, to go to the actual raw data from where that particular quote or anecdote has been picked up, so that you can verify that A, that anecdote exists, and also see that anecdote in context to all the other data in that particular form. The other difference is that because of all that meta tagging that we've done, what I can do is I can use filters. In this particular case, I have filtered down to one particular data set and said that I want to find out what are the key influences mentioned by these participants, which participants, the ones who are from India. And that's essentially the answer that I start seeing. Again, I see references. So this is an important way in which you can start engaging with your data immediately. We treat this more as a way to dip your feet into the data, start seeing an overview of what are some of the themes and insights coming out of the data that you've collected. Now let's come to annotation and coding. So let's say that you've got this theme manager, you've set it up, and then you've got this data set, right? So hypothesis one interviews. I can click on one of these data sets. Let's look at something that's already been annotated, right? And essentially what you get is a setup where you see, in this case, you have the participant ID and the transcript for the interview. This has already been annotated. So you can see all the annotations here. And in each case, you can look at the annotation, you can see what the tags are, and I can edit this as well, right? So I can say that from the selected annotations, what I want to do, what are the additional attributes or thematics that I want to edit or remove over here, right? So I can click on one of these and I can say I want to remove this one, right? And it will remove that. Additionally, on this page, you can also see a summary of this particular transcript or this entire, survey. But this is an already annotated document, right? So how do we actually do annotation? Let's open up a unannotated document, right? So this is Akash. We haven't annotated this yet. So I can simply select the text I can click on annotation and it'll show me my thematics and my attributes, which I can use to do the annotation. But this works when you've not got a lot of data, you have the capacity and bandwidth to go document by document or transcript by transcript and do that annotation. What you want to be able to do is to be able to select a few of the documents and run that AI annotation, right? And so I can essentially click on this and run the AI annotation. And that is how you can, either in batches or across your entire data set, run annotation across all the data that you have. Now, what happens with these annotations is that as you go through your data set, you will be annotating it according to the thematics. In many cases, if you have enabled inductive analysis, it will also generate new subthemes and tags. And that is an important way in which the data gets organized for you to be able to do further analysis on it. So I'll just pause here, hand back to Yashna, who's going to take us through what happens after this.
Super. Thanks, Akshay. And those who have questions in chat, please keep adding. Um, what Akshay shared was the part of getting in the data, structuring, the layer of structuring, all that, supporting it with the inductive as well as deductive themes analysis. But what happens is post my data is analyzed, my data is annotated. A lot of this can also happen by AI or manually. But you essentially land on a dashboard like this, which gives you key findings from the data. This dashboard is primarily designed so I just read Gokul's message. Gokul, it's both. It's manual. It can be auto annotated also, and it can be also once auto annotated, can be approved as well. Um, but yeah, let me just cover what happens after you land on a dashboard like this, which essentially is a place where you can see your top findings. What are the tags which are coming up right now? What are the top positive topics? What are the top negative topics? Again, what is coming from your data? It gives you an overview of your data without really going in the depth of the details of the data. This gives you, okay, what in this case, financial constraint limits, safe sanitation adoption, and there is evidence of where all that has been mentioned. So it's aggregating and making a finding. Then religious leaders influence sanitation beliefs and practices, and there are some more aggregates. So essentially, this is a place where you can start seeing some of these patterns coming up. In this, you can say, okay, top positive topics, awareness campaigns, and health education. You can start seeing those patterns also, or those fragments also coming up from this place. But as a researcher, especially for this use case, right, I don't want only overviews, right? I want to go deeper into my data and find out. That's why we have a highlights explorer. This place essentially is for teams who want to go in the depth of their data, and especially this is our this group of people who've joined for research use case. I feel this is the most useful for them, where you can essentially say, oh, these are my top tags, right? Within the sanitation intervention solution, this has appeared the maximum. The sanitation behavior practices, hygiene has become the maximum. Or let's say, okay, sanitation challenges, there are financial challenges at the maximum. I simply have to click here. I will see the filtered list of all the financial challenges, but I can then go back, go a little deeper into it. So I can find out, okay, these many times financial challenges have been mentioned. Um, what I'll do is I'll go to some attributes and say within financial constraints has need been mentioned how many times, frustration been mentioned how many times, because it does like a semantic tagging also. There's something what we call as signals is could be anything, but for now it's need, failure, behavior change, resistance to change, motivation. So you can actually go and find out further cross tagging structure as well. You can further filter it by saying, I just want to see data from just a particular thematic and go deeper into that. Or I want to add another thematic, or I want to actually filter it by a particular country. So say I just want to probably look at India data. So from baseline, I filtered India data and I could see that. So these are the filters applied, but I could keep seeing this. And then say I want to summarize all these insights to say, okay, what are people saying in India with financial constraints, with frustration across all my data sets, right? So I could go to that degree and going deeper and finding out what are people saying. Um, Let me just clear this for now to show you what else is possible here. What we see here is prevalence. What is and I said, okay, thematically, these are the prevalent tags. Attributes, these are the prevalent tags. But I want to see co-occurrences. I want to see what all has been tagged together, right? So I can say, okay, what are the most discussed? Go in that and say, okay, the financial challenges and signal reliability has probably the maximum co-occurrence, but let me just say, okay, strong patterns. And I will clear this. And I then want to see, just let me pull something. Um, just this one. So traditional beliefs and taboos have is a tag, and then cultural ethnic beliefs is also another influence that's tagged with it. And I can see this cross and say, okay, how many and what are people saying? Um, but when it comes to building toilets, many still wait or say it's too expensive or not part of our way, right? There is some cultural aspect to it. There are also financial constraints to this. I can also refresh my summary to see, okay, what are the top things that are coming as a cross for this, right? I can then apply further filters, go into drill down more and more. And when my data set is large, this essentially ability really helps in finding out these cross tagging. I can see within this particular filter lens what are the main themes that are appearing. Then actually go further into a particular aspect of my data also. So within that, I want to see specifically needs, right? So I could go to financial challenge and needs and find out what are people saying. So it's really brought it down to these annotations, and then that's essentially a snapshot of my insight. So a lot can happen on this. I have just scraped the surface, but a lot of it can be covered by going deeper and deeper into my data through that traceability lens. So that's really important for us. And the last one is essentially, I think what we didn't cover is at every data set, you could actually look at, say, some of the quantitative inputs as well. So if I have my quantitative analysis, I mean, if my data is there, I can always see, okay, what is my breakdown of education or like challenges within this? What have people spoken about? What are some thematics they've covered in annotations? Then there is some research survey data that we've asked. So I could actually see what the response for survey data is. But what happens in something which is like I've done my annotations, I've seen my quant data, I want to bring all of that together. One place is definitely that Ask AI that Akshay shared, where I could query my entire set of data. But the other is I want to, as a researcher, as a strategist, I want to create reports for different team members as well, right? Depending on the workflow. So this is an example of Dhwani, who is also on this call, has actually created this for, say, me to refer to, which is financial constraints on sanitation, because that was one of the top insights that came up. And she's done a report by first pulling up the demographic data that, okay, I'm just looking at India right now. Within India, what are the district breakdown? Um, does the do they have a household of their own? And then in that, what are the split between the kinds of toilet facility that they have? So she's done that breakdown for me. She's also done a breakdown that monthly income of household cross with type of residence you live in. So that's like so this has given me an overview. But now I want to go in how many times, say, within this group, sanitation behavior was tagged, right? Like the top sanitation behaviors was financial challenges. And there are applied filters. So all these filters probably she's gone through, which I can go deeper into later. But then I can also add my highlights here. So I I'm not just seeing the quant, I'm not just seeing the quantification of call, but I'm also seeing the call with it. So I'm building that entire report as a view for somebody to make sense of the data together. Another example of this is, say, influenced by religious leaders, right? So she's brought in again Kenya data, brought the subtags and tags here, um, given me the quantitative input also of what people responded to in surveys, and then added highlights. So I can essentially build and create my own report, because what I get from my um, at this platform is a place, an empty screen to bring in widgets from that entire data that I have. So I could bring in my bars, heat maps, line chart. I know now the data because I've queried it enough, and I can build my own picture. Um, that's the essentially the analysis part of the platform. To some extent, I see there are some questions and hands up. What we could do is pause here, unless Akshay, you think we've missed something, or get back to the deck and close it before we
I think
take
we can
questions.
just close the deck since there's only a couple of slides, since you're just
All right.
summing up.
All right, super. So just we'll sum it up, Vaishali, before we take any questions. Um, Super. So yeah. So what we essentially saw on the demo, and just summing all of that, is that there is a lot of ways for us to bring data on the platform. You can definitely collect data on your own. On the platform, you could integrate a chatbot. On the platform, you could have multiple ways of importing data, one being a CSV, or you could even import with integrations, is what that Akshay showed. There are some standard integrations, there are some custom integrations also. So the idea is for us to not store it in different places, but bring it all together. And that's what we went through. The other aspect that you saw was structuring participant and study context. So a lot of it can be and happen on the platform by the people who are setting up research. There could be participant metadata that could be set up, stakeholder types, geographies. All those help in making your research more. Um, you can really go deeper into your research with those meta tags. Um, and the other aspect was collaborating thematic analysis. While we didn't share the collaborator aspect to a great extent, essentially this platform is available for multiple team members to access different annotations, edit it. You look at the same data set in multiple times, share reports out, do the analysis together. So there's a lot of collaborative features which we could cover maybe later. Um, and essentially, how do you connect insight back to evidence? So traceability has become is one of our key driving points, or bringing that in every feature that we release. Is how do you make sure you find out where an insight is coming from? How do you go deeper into an insight? How do you start at raw data also to bring up an insight? So there are multiple ways you can come from a finding level and get into an insight. You can start at raw data and bridge that whole piece through filters and then come up with an insight. So that's the other part. And essentially in reports, again, we only saw a very tight part of reports, but you could basically bring in data from different data sources, have timestamps, and actually see that over time. You can compare geographies because you can bring those lenses together in a report. Um, and again, those reports are dynamic. As you have your widgets in place, they keep updating. Either if it's a filter, date filter, it'll be static, but otherwise it can keep updating depending on what you're seeing. So those reports basically help you see patterns over time as well. Um, so yeah, essentially DOTS is building to from research projects to research systems. So there is a way for you to have repository knowledge systems, good quality insights all in one place for teams to actually work on it together. And yeah, I'll pause now. Yes, I think there are some hands raised.
Vaishali, if you want to go first, then we can hear from Jaisha.
Thanks, Akshay. Thanks, Yashna. Wonderful presentation. It was pretty insightful. The question I wanted to ask was I could so see themes in the frequency. So just wanted to ask whether those are coming from one transcript or multi-transcripts. That's one. So within a project, I believe there will be 10, 15, 20 transcripts, right? And is it also possible that we do the analysis across multiple studies, say study A, B, C, like that?
Yeah, so one, what you saw was multi transcripts, but we can filter and narrow it down to one transcript also. So both are possible. But essentially it starts with like an overview and then you drill it down to your tightish um, study that you want to do. You can have multiple projects also. So the it could be that I've done, it depends on what is your workspace. So we can say, oh, you want to have multiple studies in one place, please go for it, provided the context is similar. So your AI knows what you're also tagging, etc. But if those projects don't need to interact, then there could be multiple workspaces also that can be created. So it's all flexible based on your uh, all flexible based on what is your need of the project. Somebody who shared the screen.
Thank,
Hmm.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes,
The
I hope
second
that answered.
question, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Yashna. So the second question is on the snippets and the VOC. Say, for example, we are talking about customization is one theme. Is it also possible, like when we click on customization, I can see respondent A from Namibia is talking about this, respondent B from India is talking about this. Is that also possible on one click? And my follow-up question would be then, if voice of the customer is possible, the verbatim, if on one click, can I also access the audio or the video?
I will need you to define the one click maybe later, but just sharing how that works
Right.
is that you can integrate. So, what Akshay shared was a Slack or a
Hmm.
Fathom integration, right? So, these are just two examples of integration. There could be different kinds. For example, I'm going to take Fathom, right? Fathom is like a recording setup, like a voice. There's a Fathom right here in this call as well. I could pull in, I could just say, integrate my Fathom, pull in all my calls from that Fathom onto this platform. It will not just say, oh, I mean, it will take the audio with it. It will take the transcript. It will take the details of the participants also. So there, whatever data is on that integration will come. If that data doesn't exist, it will not come. So while you might call it one click, there are steps to just set that integration up and then it just keeps syncing.
No, my
Uh,
question was different. Yes, Akshay.
Yeah,
Maybe Akshay got
maybe I can. Yeah, couple of things I'll say. One is like if you're looking at it depends the again like Yashna said, one click depends on where you're clicking from. But the point is that if
course.
you're in the highlights explorer and you select a particular tag, right, it's essentially showing you all the quotes from that particular tag, right?
Hmm.
And you can expand that card to show other metadata related to that tag, whatever comes, with that data set, and you could potentially click on that card to take you back to the raw data, the actual survey where that is. And depending on how the data has come in, either that data has come in through some integration or a survey form where you had uploaded audio or video, then that
Yeah.
audio and video is available there as a file. At the moment, it is not going to take you to that moment in the audio or video where that text is. So that sort of syncing is not currently available, if that's what you
Okay.
were asking for. It will take you to that point in the transcript from where the text has come, right? It
Come.
will not sync with your audio video part, but if the audio file or video file is embedded in that form, it's accessible there for you to be able to then see the audio or video in its totality.
Okay. One last question is whether the follow-up only, whether the input of dots is audio, video, or the textual data.
All of the above.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Video, we haven't started transcribing
Yeah.
yet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's ability to add video. Audio transcription is available, and text is anyway there.
Exactly. So audio, we do transcription and translation as well. We have an integration with a model that does that. We offer that currently for a bunch of Indian languages, but if you have other language requirements, we can kind of explore what models are doing a good job in that. I think Jayesha, you had a few questions.
Yes, I
Yeah.
had a question. I'm so sorry for the disturbance, if any. There's a lot of construction where I am.
I think it's
Can't hear
for you,
anything.
not for us at all.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. I'm glad you are spared from
Yeah.
it. Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. As I use other coding softwares for research, I've used Qualcoder and NVivo. I just wanted to understand where and how you feel DOTS is different from those in its functionalities, or what add-ons are there, or maybe for the Indian context. That's one thing. And second, I wanted to understand, like, you had shown the demo in a browser. So maybe I missed that earlier part of the presentation. Does it run entirely collaboratively on browser, or would it be a program? And the third is, what models do you have? Is this a subscription-based service, or a one-time service for organizations? Just wanted to understand that part as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I can start, Yashna, just jump in. I think I'll answer the second question first because I think it's also if you've used things like NVivo, I think people are used to using it locally on their computers, and that's also because those sorts of that whole legacy of softwares essentially works for individual researchers usually, right? That's what it was designed for. And so that's a big departure in terms of how we've built this, right? So from the get-go, we've built this to be a collaborative tool, right? Teams have access control. So you can have different sets. Like, for example, one of our partners, Catapult, based in the US, did a fairly large study. Actually, they did two fairly large studies in Kenya, Nigeria, and Senegal, where they collaborated with local, design research firms who also had two tiers of. So they had field teams who were coming in and putting up the transcripts and doing the first round of coding, and they would submit for review to the senior members of their team who would review, do a bit of back and forth, and then the research team would publish the data, and then they could do a back and forth with Catapult, etc. So in terms of multi-region, slightly more complex setups, access control is a big differentiator with NVivo. Collaboration, even in a small team, is a big differentiator. You can see, oh, this document is under edit by Roop or Yashna. So that's why I can read it, but I can't edit it. Things like that. Although we're doing things, we're moving in a direction where teams can collaboratively also annotate documents and things like that. So the interface I showed you is uh, fresh out of the oven, as it were. And so there's going to be a lot of updates on that front as well. And I would go so far as to say that I think the quality of the AI annotation, etc., is better, and it is getting better. And one thing that we've been working on is sort of not just the thematics that you tag it on, but like a underlying set of attributes also. Like I think Yashna mentioned that while she was showing the highlights explorer and the research findings, which is say around sentiments, the signals, things like that, right? So essentially, those are two or three things. And maybe the fourth thing is just, I think some of these older tools, you can see that they're older tools. They speak of an interface, user interface that is somewhat archaic. And, that's where this stands out in a big way. And actually, sorry, one big point I forgot to mention is just how data is structured and how we deal with metadata, and how, your ability to use roll-up filters, etc., across the board makes it very powerful for you to disaggregate, and things like that. I think tools like Atlas TI and Vivo, etc., don't necessarily do a great job with that. So just a few things. Yashna, on those two questions, if you want to jump in, or I can talk about the models.
I think just
Uh,
the
yeah,
language part, there is ability
yeah.
to
Right.
support. Indian languages and integrations. And honestly, a lot of things are different, not for just research use case, but expanding the use case for teams. So importing data from these multiple sources like Slack, Fathom is for teams lens. It's not an academic research lens. So the lens, Jayasha, has been very different for us while building, while might be that, oh, there is a foundational thematic analysis which is similar. Because the who is it for is essentially where the differentiation happens.
And on the last question, thank you for asking that one. The way that essentially pricing works is in two ways. One is sort of like SaaS pricing, so software as a service products that everybody is used to now, which you have feature-based pricing and then number of seats that you have. And there's a second layer because we have the integration of different LLMs, etc. We have a data metering. So depending on the size of the data set that you bring in, number of words, etc., that is being processed, there is a data metering as well. We can share a link to how pricing works for research projects. So you can kind of, we have a nifty calculator that I'm very excited about. So you
Great.
can kind of figure out how it works. And but I would say whatever your use case, do get in touch with
Yes.
us. So we can kind of, discuss that as well and figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah, also one thing, at least in that link, you'll see is more from a Teams lens. So even in the base thing, 5 users come, right? So that is something that we've kept for now. It's not like, oh, one person uses it. So the pricing is reflective of a Teams use case again. But as Akshay said, whatever use case you might have, would be happy to discuss on what can
Right.
work best for you.
Right.
It also builds our understanding of, how people are using or want to use tools like ours.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
hope that answers your questions.
Yes, yes, it's great. And if no one has their hands up, I'm just gonna take a couple more follow-ups if that's
Can
fine.
I answer Nitin's question that
Yeah,
came in
yeah,
chat,
sure,
and
sure.
then we can come
Sure.
back to yours?
After that, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nitin, first of all, nice to see you and joining. But it's just wanted to say that it is useful for field personnel, that in the sense that that is where that's the way that we started out, helping field personnel add qualitative data into the system. And the idea was that, the platform is mobile responsive. So I didn't show that in today's flow, but the idea is that it works on any mobile browser, and people can add data there. The hints that I showed you briefly is an important part of that. And the third part is that we translate the platform. So I don't know if you've seen India Sandwatch is one of our public platforms, which is now available in Hindi also, right? So we do offer platforms in multiple languages. And that is, we also handle language in a slightly more nuanced way, where especially where field teams need to access it, either access the data or add data. So we work with partners to do the translation of the forms or the interface, as opposed to doing auto translation, which can lead to some mistranslation. So we just make sure that we look at language. And one more thing I'll add is teams can add data in the field personnel can add data in their language, as opposed to having to enter the data in English, but we can bring it in for translation. So, for example, one of our partners, GSL, has a platform which has Spanish, Portuguese, Bahasa Indonesia, Bahasa Malay, and we have translated all of that and brought it into the analysis part of the process as well. Right. So that's how I think we're able to handle the field personnel.
So
Just a
can I
few
just
things.
have,
Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
yeah, so just one question on that. If I'm starting a project anew, like there might be some other data that I can pull in and so on, and I understand that. I mean, and
Yeah.
if I have any questions, I can ask you later. But if I'm conceptualizing and starting something anew.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that if I'm to use an integrative platform like this, what is your suggestion in terms of how to organize the field teams and what is the kind of training needed? So if I'm sending out, say, uh, uh, 300 students to gather data from, 50 villages
Yeah.
in one place in India, let's
Sure.
say, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
going to gather information, say, in my case, in Marathi and
Yes.
in English.
Correct.
Then, what is your recommended method of of structuring and the
Yeah.
team and gathering the
Yeah.
data? That's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
question.
Okay, understood. So I think one, I'll give you the standard consultant's answer, which is it depends. But no, but in your case, because we've spoken in the past, so I have a sense of things, like especially because you have university students, they have a certain level of literacy and comfort with electronic tools. They might have their mobile phones, etc. Where the it depends comes in, it is also the internet access where they are going to be going and doing data collection. That can add a aspect of what tool you use for data collection, because you don't have to use our tool. There are other tools you can use. The idea is that when we advise people about that, we one is we ask them to be very careful about how long they make questionnaires, because it's so tempting to make extremely long questionnaires. So how do you really collect the data with a view at your analysis, and working backwards from the analysis A. B, we encourage people to, if they're asking quantitative questions, to ask qualifying qualitative questions. So try and make it mixed method. Don't necessarily weigh only one way or the other. The third is that add as much metadata as you can. Is even if in your analysis you are not expecting to slice the data in certain ways, collect the metadata if it is easy to collect. Certain things you can't collect because it's sensitive, or it might act against the privacy or interests of the people you're collecting from. Then don't collect it. But if you can, you may as well collect it, right? Even like distance from the closest well, for example, right? You could collect that because you might be doing something about groundwater access or something like that, right? So those are sorts of things that we advise people on. And then, in terms of the intensity and type of training, in your case with university students, you probably want to take the professors or maybe senior students who are running a nature club through which you're accessing the students into confidence, and then you kind of filter it through that. So a train the trainer kind of model. In the past we've done that online as well. In your case you may not need to do it online, right? And so we have some thoughts on that which we can kind of take it more specifically. uh we have a question from Pragya. Yeah, Pragya, if you want to ask your question.
You're on
uh,
mute, Pragya.
Maybe hand up was by mistake,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay,
Jayesha, if you want to
Jaisha,
ask
you
your
wanna? Yeah.
follow-ups.
Yeah, just two really quick follow-ups. When you mentioned data metering, it would be very similar to like how there are tokens on AI services. Would that be yeah, so the plugins that no, sorry, not the plugins, but the feature-based pricing, you all have like we don't have to plug in our own AI subscriptions for the
No,
tokens, right? It's within
no.
the software
Yeah,
itself.
yeah.
Okay,
And
okay.
I mean, the thing is, that's how it's sort of built. That's what the
Yeah,
metering is for.
yeah.
Hi,
Essentially, is around that.
hi, sorry, I just got disconnected. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Pragya, can you hold on for a second? We'll just finish Jayesha's follow-up.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
sure, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I've
Okay,
shared the link in the chat.
perfect.
Jayesha, you can have a look at that. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
also, we
yeah,
don't do essentially tokens, it's a bundle concept. So slightly
yeah,
different,
Okay.
but like
yeah,
Okay.
bundles.
yeah.
Hmm.
Similar lines, yeah.
Mm.
It's great that you built a collaborative resource. I am an individual researcher, which is why I
Sure.
was thinking
Yeah,
from my point
yeah.
of
Yeah.
view. Although of course I aspire to the day when my teams will also be working on the coding along with me. But it's interesting that you have the base pricing for a team of 5, and I'll look through it and I would love to connect with you. So I'll stay in
Sounds
touch.
good. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Pragya, go
Hi.
ahead.
So yeah, I sorry, I joined 15 minutes late to the
session, so I missed initial part. So if I'm repeating something, please apologies for that. So I work for an organization as a senior research lead, and we are going to conduct interviews of system stakeholders in 5 different districts of India. And there'll be multiple people. I mean, there'll be 2 3 people leading it, and but there'll be multiple people who will be collecting the interview data. So I'm just not able to understand how they will be, my whole team will be able to use dots for that. And like, how do we, go ahead after that, is just what I'm trying to understand.
Sure. So it's multiple kind of ways in which all the whole team can take part, right? So let's say you've got 5 districts. Let's assume you have 2 teams, right? Or and one team goes to 2 3 districts, another team goes to 2 3 districts. You can use a standard form essentially, which will reflect your discussion guide or your questionnaire as well, which can be used to collate the data. And in that, one of our partners recently was using it to do research with system stakeholders, right? So people across the hierarchy in a particular government line department. And they are also using a single form, but every, whether this is a block data officer or a district, education officer or so on and so forth, you're able to tag that and add that metadata, which district, of course, things like that, right? So everybody can get their own login, so they're able to kind of add data. That's one part of it. You or a centralized research analysis team can be kind of constantly seeing as the data is coming in. You could also course correct, for example. That's what Catapult was doing, right? They were course correcting after a few rounds of first round of interview. Because they're seeing the transcripts come in, right? They're also able to say, hey, maybe that question 3A, you need to ask it a little differently, so we get more open-ended responses or so on and so forth. And lastly, as Jayesha was mentioning, because all the data is coming in, you have a lot of data. 5 districts is a fair bit. Everybody in the team can be sitting and doing the coding and also looking at the analysis that everybody else is doing. So in that sense, it is a because it is a cloud-based platform. Everybody can see, everything that's happening, unless you don't want them to. In which case, we, do some access control as well. For example, in Catapult's case, because it was a public health use case, the research team in Nigeria could not see the data from Kenya and Senegal and so on, because you had to protect that. So there are different ways in which it can work. Happy to do a mapping call. That's a standard part of our process. When somebody is interested in it with a specific use case like this, we do a quick mapping call to also go into more detail to show what features might be relevant, because we're able to understand the specific sort of pain points that you might have. Yashna, anything to add that I might have missed?
I don't know if you covered the self-serve part. So everybody needn't use the platform for analysis. They could have
Yeah.
people who are just adding data. You could have people who are analyzing data. So you could have different teams also, Pragya, to manage the study better. There is a level of access control available on the platform, even on the self-managed standard platform.
Okay. I remember you were mentioning that this platform is capable of handling multiple languages also,
Yeah.
especially Indian languages.
Correct.
My question is that if the entire transcript of interview from the 5 districts, it's not just in one language, maybe it's a mix of English and Hindi.
Yeah.
Can dots be able to help us out in
Yeah.
coding that and
Yeah.
analysis
So
of that?
Pragya, essentially we have integrations with different tools for transcription and translation. And we've seen mixed languages also come in. Those get transcribed into one single, say English being the primary one. That's all possible on the platform.
Okay. Just a last question. If I want to go through how dots exactly work, maybe like a video or maybe like a some document, is there anything like that to understand step by step how dots work? I mean, majorly, I understood what you both were trying to explain, and that's really helpful. But again, if I want to revisit how dots work,
We will send you some recording and links specifically. If you can, Akshay, also send some emails for you to reach out with some specific use cases. We can send them specific links and videos. But within the follow-up email, what we can do is send in links along with the recording of this, the demo and the recording of the video. So we will share. But if there's some specific use cases, I'd request you to please write to us on the emails that Akshay sent, even to one of us. That'll be great. And then we can send you really specific use cases, documentation that is necessary for your use case. Because we did speak generically, and it'll be important to send you some specific workflows.
right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yashna. Thank you, Akshay.
Super.
Super.
We're
Thank you
also
so
happy
much.
to set up follow-up calls with people. I know we're over time, so in case there aren't any questions, we can do that separate calls after this. Superb. Thank you everyone for joining and staying till the end. Yeah, we'll share those use cases. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.